Okay, so I've got all these tools in front of me. Here today, I'm going to be showing you how to roll out your own muscle tissue, how to target your trigger points, your sore spots, the achy muscles that are ruining your training, that are causing problems while you train. Instead of feeling a nice burn in the muscle, you're feeling pain in your shoulder joint. Instead of feeling a nice burn in your muscles while you're doing squats, you're feeling problems in your knees. So sometimes that can occur not because you have poor joint mechanics, but because the muscle tissue is knotted up from bad joint mechanics. So the two they go hand in hand. We want to correct joint mechanics and how you move, but we also need to address what you've done to yourself over the years with poor posture or poor training mechanisms or training mechanics. So we're going to learn how to roll out these trigger points, these knots, these muscle knots that are preventing your muscles from stretching properly and functioning properly. So we've got all these tools in front of me, and I want to teach you how to use each and every one of them, because for different parts of the body, there's a better tool. Sometimes you need a broad tool for hitting the leg. Sometimes you need a more pinpoint tool for getting into the pec or the bicep. So depending on the size of the muscle, sometimes that changes which tool you're going to be using. And depending on the severity of the trigger point or the knot in your muscle might depend on how much pressure you can handle and which tool you're going to use. So for example, both of these tools are virtually the same. You're going to use them for virtually the same purpose, but this one is really soft and this one is rock hard. The harder surface that you choose to roll out your muscles, the more painful it's going to be. And that's okay, because ultimately when you push on healthy tissue, when you roll out healthy tissue, it does not hurt very much. When you push on gummed up, matted down tissue that is a problem, it's going to hurt a lot. That is a feedback system that we can learn to use to heal ourselves. We don't want to run away from that feedback system. We just need to learn how to massage ourselves with these tools so that we can comfortably, well, maybe not so comfortably, remove those knots from our body, improve the muscle tissue, and get back to training pain-free. Okay, so first thing I want to touch on is the foam roller. A lot of people are probably very familiar with the foam roller. So the foam roller I find is excellent for rolling out the lat muscles right here underneath the arm, for rolling out the mid and upper back, for rolling out the big muscles of the legs like the quads and the sides of the legs. There's an IT band here, iliotibial band, that can be like leather. Well, this foam roller is very good at attacking that area. It's also great for the lower limb, so getting into the calves, getting into the soleus muscle, very good. That being said, you could attack it with a very pinpoint tool like that lacrosse ball. You could attack it with a pinpoint tool like this softball. It's just a hair bigger, so it allows you to pinpoint the knot or the trigger point just slightly differently. So an example of utilizing this foam roller would be getting down on one side like this, and then you'd find a target pinpoint problem area. I'm already on one, I know my body, I'm already on one. So here we can either just hang out or we can go ahead and roll over that muscle. Now, the slower you roll, the more pressure you're applying to the system. So the faster you roll, if you're rolling back and forth like this, it's less effective. So slow down that roll, slow your roll, all right? And then you can also change your angle back and forth. For me, I'm not too sore back here. I'm more sore towards the front corner of my quad. So I'm gonna get onto that spot and I'm gonna slowly roll over it. I can also pin that spot and then move my knee through knee extension and knee flexion. What that's gonna do is we're pinning down the problem area. With that pin, we're then lengthening the muscle, which helps open up that targeted tissue. So you can either pin and hold, pin and then roll, micro roll over that one spot, or do a broad surface, or you can pin and then go through movement around that system. If you can mobilize through the movement you're trying to improve, typically that improves the movement. Okay, so that's an example of using the foam roller. You could do that with the PVC pipe. Now, the narrower the PVC pipe becomes, the more it can dig into you. A broad surface hits the whole surface, and the pressure or weight is spread out over that entire surface. The more pinpoint that surface, the more narrow that surface, the more pinpoint that pressure will be, the deeper you can dig into that muscle tissue or that layer. So, let's say I do have pretty healthy tissue here, but I still have a deep, deep knot. I might use a more pinpoint surface to get down into that nasty IT band, to get into that quad muscle. And so immediately right here, I know that I've got a sore spot there. I can just stay here and breathe. That's another thing about rolling, foam rolling, or rolling out with lacrosse ball or softball or medicine ball, whatever we're using. If you're tight like this, chances are your whole body is resisting the therapy. You're resisting the therapy. So you have to get rid of this. You have to relax, you have to breathe. And I recommend when it gets really nasty, that's when you really breathe. So if I'm going through a really sore spot, so I can do micro oscillations or I can do broad sweeps. You'll know which one is more effective for you when you're doing it. I can pinpoint and then go through knee flexion and extension, and again, I've got to relax. If the tissue's really bad, you'll probably just be able to just sit there on it. You probably won't be able to move. When you can start moving around, that means the tissue's getting healthier, you're improving the situation. Okay, so the narrower the tool, the more pinpoint, the more deep you can get into that muscle, the muscle layering, and get deep at those trigger points that are restricting motion. Okay, so let's look at another tool. So this is a softball. It's not soft at all. It's not soft at all. It's very, very firm. I cannot squish it. It's a official league softball. I picked it up at my local sporting goods store. For us in Canada, that's Canadian Tire. It was like $7 and worth every penny. So let's say I've got a tight glute muscle and I want to get in there with my softball. I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. This is where I'm putting it, just on this area of my glute where the muscle mass is. We never want to roll out a bone. We're not here to roll out bones, we're here to roll out muscle tissue. All right, so I'm getting into my glute here. And what I can do is I can pinpoint and just sit there, or I can pinpoint and roll. I happen to know lots about anatomy, and I know that the muscle fibers run this way. They don't run up and down my leg, they run kind of horizontal to my leg. So I know I can roll with the fibers, or I can roll against and across the fibers. There's no right or wrong here. We just need to get effectively into the tissue that's bothering us. So I can adjust my body position to get into it deeper and deeper and deeper. So I might drop down to my elbow. This is allowing me to get into a higher position on my glute. If I come back up here, now I'm gonna get deeper into the bottom parts of my glute. I can roll all the way down to the muscle insertion of my glute. So the glute is inserting down here. I'm now on that position. So you can see with a ball, it's a very fluid tool. I can move to different parts of the glute very quickly here and very easily. Now, when I find a bad spot, I'm gonna wanna stay on it and mobilize that tissue or smash that tissue for 2 minutes minimum. Why 2 minutes? Well, a lot of therapists agree that 2 minutes is the minimum time to affect a positive change. If you're going for less time than that, then it tends to be ineffective or not enough change was made to see a significant difference. So pull out your phone, pull out a timer, lock it in for 2 minutes at least. I usually go for 2 minutes before I move to another spot. 2 minutes, move to another spot. So I mentioned that you can pin this area and then go ahead and go through movement. So for the glute, you're gonna wanna go through hip abduction, hip adduction. So I can pin the glute here and I can bring my knee up with this tool and down with this tool. So I'm going ahead and lengthening the tissue. As I go up like this, I'm lengthening through adduction, and then I'm shortening through abduction. And if you have trigger points in your glutes, you're gonna be like, eep. But again, you gotta breathe, you gotta relax. 2 minutes, just going through this action. I could also go through hip flexion and hip extension. So a very versatile tool. You can literally roll out any part of your body with a ball like this, especially with a small ball like this.